What's up, design family, and welcome back to another episode of Fittdesign TV. So glad to have you back on the channel. On today's episode, we'll be looking at the major money pits that almost every single fashion brand will experience when starting off their journey. We all know that fashion is an extremely capital-intensive business, and it's only after that we've invested our time, our sweat, our effort, and our money that we can potentially begin seeing a return on investment on all of that effort that we put into the business. On today's episode, I'll not only be running you guys through what these money pits are, most times they're hidden in plain sight, and I'll give you guys my experience as a creative director and as a project manager, managing over 100 different startup brands, taking them from point A to a successful point Z in terms of what these common money pits are, how to avoid them, and if you stick around till the end of this video, I'll be giving you guys a bonus tip that you can follow, so make sure to stick to the end to find out what it is. What's up, design family, and welcome to Fittdesign TV. So glad to have you here. On this channel, we discuss all things sports fashion, graphic design, manufacturing, and technology. We'll discuss key topics, answer pressing questions, and provide actionable steps on starting your own product line. If you're interested in any of the above topics, stick around. You're in for a good one. Getting right into the episode, number one, or the major money pits that most brands fall into, is going to be excessive prototyping and sample development costs. And believe me, I've been in your shoes, I completely get it. When starting off your brand, you've gone through the design phase, you've gone through the branding phase, and now for the first time, you get to see your product come to life, and it can be extremely exciting, and you finally have this tangible piece in your hands. And I get the intention, or I get the sort of mindset of wanting to perfect your sample before committing to go into mainline production, whether it's showing your friends, showing your audience, showing your family. Yes, your sampling cost may seem like an isolated and minimal cost in the immediate, but these costs, they stack up. Your sample on average is going to cost between 5 to 10x your mainline production cost per unit, which is not sustainable. If you're creating multiple of these, especially as a startup brand, you can quickly find yourself eating up into your budget. At the end of the day, the goal is to get to the finish line, not to be waiting at the starting line or basically marrying your way through the marathon. You want to make sure that you're getting to your end goal. Some ways that you can avoid, well, there's two primary ways to avoid excessive sampling costs. Number one is work with a factory that knows what they're doing, right? They can follow instructions. They are going to give you a proper sample. They're going to have a sense of integrity with their pricing of their samples. Of course, as I mentioned, your sample cost is not going to be a reflection of your mainline cost. You're never going to get a price per unit cost on a sample. That's just normal. Prototyping is extremely labor intensive, and the factory is going to charge for that. At the end of the day, you want to go into mainline production. So find a factory that's worth it then. We've done separate videos in the past where I've taken you personally through my tips and tricks in terms of how to vet good suppliers. Definitely feel free to check that out. Two is going to be have a concise and clear factory ready tech pack. Whether you're going to create it yourself or you're going to hire a professional, we personally offer great factory or tech packing services. Check the link in the description if you want to find out more about this. But a good tech pack is going to give your supplier a good way or a clear way in terms of what you're looking for, what it is that you need, and you're ultimately going to create a sample that is much more accurate and much more in line with what your finished product should look like. So it's a great communication tool. Some key things that you want to include in a tech pack are going to be the visual look of your design. Whether you're doing 3D prototyping software like Clo3D or you're doing a vector flat, you'll want to include some sort of visual look. Two is going to be your sizing specs. You want to be clear on how this garment should fit. Three are going to be your grading requirements between different sizes. Four is your packaging details. What are you including? How can a factory price you or show you your prototype correctly if you're not including those details? You're also going to want to include a fabric reference, the composition, the quality of the fabric. You may also want to provide a physical sample of the fabric. And lastly is going to be a visual reference of difficult to describe items like your stitch quality, your finishings, so on and so forth. Number two is customer returns due to poor quality of your garments. Do not underestimate the impact financially and reputation-wise this can have on your business. You've done all the work, you've invested your money, and you've captured the customer. They get shipped their item, which you've paid for, obviously, and all of a sudden they want to return it. Either they're asking for a replacement or a refund. These costs are going to stack up. Let's just say your margin was at 30%, 40%, 50%. All of a sudden you find your margin cut from 30% or 40% all the way down to 10 or even 0%. And if the problem is bad enough, you can actually begin losing money on each order if you haven't calculated your shipping costs properly or if your marketing isn't on point. More about that in a separate point. So your returns can really impact your bottom line. And yes, I get it, when you're starting off, your profit margins most likely are not going to be that high. But this is a surefire way to structure the demise of your company by 1,000 cuts. So how can you avoid this? Well, number one is you need to clearly articulate what your acceptable standards are and what are your unacceptable standards with a factory. Make a list of defects beforehand that you can agree on with the factory. Typically, you'll want to bake in a 5% defect variance in your total order, which means no more than 5% of your products in this mainline production can have these defects. Anything more than that, you have an issue. This is going to come down to the factory and how they handle it. What you can do, especially if your order is large enough, you can contract a third-party company to come in and to observe these lists of defects and to make their own assessment based on the production line. So let's just say your factory is in China. This third-party company would also be located in China. They would come in onto the factory premise and they would inspect each and every single piece based on the list of defects that you've outlined. They're going to have a much more objective approach because their interests are highly aligned with yours. They want to make sure they're doing a good job, and if they miss anything, you can come back and complain to them. So this is a great option, especially if you want to maintain quality and you want to take the burden of performance off of the factory simply because of a misalignment of interests. Last but not least is your runaway marketing costs. Any beginner fashion brand is going to struggle with this. You're a brand that's unknown. You're trying to tap into a market that is heavily saturated. Yes, there is an opportunity, but there are existing players in the market that have been there for far longer than you have. You are going to have higher marketing costs, but structuring your costs in a way that is both, just say, mature, aka you know where you're investing your money, and you're actively monitoring your return on investment or your ROI on these costs is going to go a long way towards the longevity of your business. Look at it this way. You're a new brand that's starting off and you've commissioned a variety of different marketing services that you need. Let's just say you need an email marketing campaign manager, something like Klaviyo or MailChimp. That's a cost right there. You need something to monitor your customers' experience on your website, Hotjar. That's another cost right there. You need something to be able to manage like a Shopify account, your e-commerce store. That's a third cost right there. And then you have the individual costs of actually marketing your business, whether you're marketing on Pinterest, whether you're marketing on Facebook, Google Ads, SEO, Facebook, whatever it is. You're going to have a cost associated with mounting each campaign. And it's going to be quite difficult to see your upfront costs because a lot of these campaigns, you really need more. Let's just say you need to be able to mount this campaign and to monitor its performance over time. Something like an effective SEO campaign is not going to bear fruit overnight. It's going to be something that you're going to have to monitor consistently over a long period of time. Just because you've added a bunch of links or let's just say you're upping your SEO efforts, you're not going to see that immediate return overnight. Same thing with a Facebook ad campaign, same thing with an Instagram campaign. So make sure that you're giving it the necessary time. But on the flip side, you don't want to give it too much time. Really, there is a balancing act here. You want to be able to calculate your customer acquisition cost. What does it cost you to acquire a customer that's actually buying from you? And then you need to also look at your total basket of customers. These customers, what are they buying on average? What is the total basket size of a customer? How often are they returning? These are all analytics that you really need to take the time to accurately track to make sure that your marketing campaigns are effective. Know where to continue and to continue pressing on with your marketing and know when to cut your losses. And really, it can be a delicate balancing act. So there is going to be an upfront investment that you have to make, and you do have to trust yourself throughout the process because these results are not going to be instantaneous, but effective and consistent monitoring of these analytics is going to go a long way towards ensuring the health of your marketing and your business long term. Well guys, that is it. That is a wrap on this episode. That's been the 3 major pits or money pits that most brands will experience and will most likely fall into when starting their fashion brands. If you guys enjoyed this episode, learned a thing or two, let me know which of the 3 points you feel is most relevant to where you're personally at, or if I missed anything, also let me know in the comments below. Guys, if you want to hop on a one-on-one call, you want to discuss your business or what you have in mind with me personally, or you're facing any one of these issues and potentially want a solution, check the link in the description and there's a consultation link on there, and we can book a one-on-one call and I can personally tailor my feedback specifically to your use case scenario. Guys, if you enjoy this type of content, please consider smashing a massive thumbs up. It really does help us out. It lets more people see these episodes, and that really does help to motivate us to keep pushing out this content. And thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Fittdesign TV. Until next week's episode, stay awesome.